Hi guys from Riga in Latvia. Today we'll talk about thinking big. Let's talk today about thinking big. In our efforts, in our ventures, we are sometimes afraid of our limitations, of our failures, of our defeats. So we tend to take the easier, the more secure route and to take on ventures that we know how to accomplish. Ventures which are within the limits of our know-how, of our abilities. So we take the easy route, so to say, because we believe with that we will be more successful or at least more safe. But you need to understand that the size of your thinking determines the size of your accomplishments. If you think in small categories, you will accomplish small things. If you want to accomplish big things, you just must think big. As an example, the billionaires I have interviewed, as you know, I have interviewed 25 billionaires for my book project about billionaire thinking. All of them think in really big dimensions. I will give you some examples. A friend of mine, a Norwegian billionaire, Peter Stordalen, owns 200 hotels. Another billionaire I have interviewed, Frank Stronach, owns 400 factories. A billionaire friend of mine, Jack Cohen, owns 3,000 restaurants. But the most amazing in terms of the size of his thinking is another participant in my book project, Russian billionaire Sergei Galitsky, whose company owns 15,000 supermarkets across Russia. I will give you some examples of the attitude these extraordinarily successful entrepreneurs, the billionaires, have and how they think big. But you need to realize that thinking big doesn't take more effort than thinking small. So if you are at all about to think, you should think in big dimensions because it doesn't make more effort to think big. And another surprising fact is that big ideas are often easier actually to realize than the small ones. There are several reasons for that, and I will tell you several of them in the next video. But one of the main reasons is your own motivation. Answer yourself the question, what are you more motivated by? To lose, let's say, 1 pound of weight, of your body weight? Or maybe you would be more motivated to run a marathon. So you see, a big idea brings you more motivation, and you need that motivation in order to actually realize that idea, to force yourself, in that case, to effort and to actually pull that off. My first billionaire I have interviewed was a Polish billionaire, Michał Sołowow, who is the second wealthiest person in Poland right now, and who was chosen the best entrepreneur in the post-communist Poland. One of his major business engagement was construction, and he was building full residential areas, big-scale projects for billions of dollars. And what he said, I want to read it to you. I went into construction because I have always believed that by making things big and expensive, I will obtain much greater margins than by making small and cheap things. So this is one of of major advantages of thinking big, right? If you do that, you have just much more profit because your business partners and your stakeholders, they just don't have the feel for that kind of projects, for these dimensions, and they are not able to actually calculate the costs of such great projects. So you have considerable business advantages in that. But I think the billionaire who thinks biggest from all my interviewees is Naveen Jain. Naveen Jain built an information and internet company back in 90s, which on its top was valued at $32 billion. And now in one of his companies, he is building a spaceship. And he often says, don't tell me sky is the limit, because I am gonna mine the moon. His mission is to become the first company to conduct mining activities on the moon and bring mined material, natural resources to the earth. Sometimes people ask me if there will be any trillionaire on earth. If there is to be a trillionaire on earth, Naveen Jain is certainly one of the hottest candidates for that. And now I will tell you, you will say, I am young, I am unexperienced, how can I think big, how can I operate in big numbers, in big sums of money? In one of my articles on my blog, I have depicted Lars Windhorst. Lars Windhorst started with 16 and started to import computers and computer parts from China. His revenue was 80 million mark, around, let's say, $40 million in the very first year of operation. And he was 16. He wasn't even legally allowed to conduct business, to run business. This business was officially registered for his father, and his father needed to sign every check Lars wrote. And being 19, Lars decided to build the highest building in Vietnam. This is a longer story. I won't tell you the whole story. You can read it in my book. But this project ended up with capital needs of 150 million. Lars wanted actually to build a 11-floor building, and at that time in Vietnam, the highest building was 7th floor. But the project developed and it ended up as a 55-floor building with a capital need of over 100 million, I guess, maybe 150. You will read the details in my book. And Lars didn't know how to build a skyscraper, how to finance a skyscraper. He didn't have any construction and development know-how, any experience. He was 19 and he was faced with that problem. And that project actually exploded in his hands. This is the worst case scenario that can happen to you, right? That you try to do something really big, to think big, to do something big, and you just fail. And he failed in that. And he had to undergo personal bankruptcy out of that. But the experience he got in that project helped him later, in his later life, brought him into contact with very successful people, with also with experts in their industries. So he was able to regain the money he lost in that process and become even more. Right now he is a very successful investor and extremely wealthy man. So that's it in the first video about thinking big. In the next video, I will tell you with mathematical and logical models why it is actually easier to succeed when you do big things in comparison when you do the average stuff. If you operate outside the mediocrity. And now I will show you something. I am here in Riga, in Latvia. In Middle Ages, when you were thinking small, you were starving. You were living in a wooden booth, or maybe you didn't have a home at all. Then, when you were an ambitious, let's say, entrepreneur, a merchant, you had a stand on the market. Then you were allowed to attend such a guild here. This is the small guild, so to say, for the merchants, for the small business people, right? Like a business club. You can network here, you could celebrate here, maybe you could do business here with your business contacts. But when you were a really big boy in big commerce, big business, like overseas trade, or you were a mayor or whatever, you went here to this building. This is the Great Guild of Riga. This is the club for the big boys. And it is up to you to decide in which club you want to go, to the mediocre entrepreneurs or to the big boys. And it's not necessarily more effort to go to the big boys, right? It is just a switch in your thinking. You just need to have the right attitude and the right thinking in order to be able to go to the other club. So if you want to learn how most successful entrepreneurs in the world think, what are the attitudes and the thinking strategies of the billionaires, subscribe here. And here you will find one of my best videos. And here you can get updates to my upcoming book about billionaire psychology. That's it. Thank you and see you from the beautiful Riga in Latvia.